August 21st, 1911, Monday morning. The Louvre Museum in Paris. A painter named Louis Barraud arrives to sketch Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa, as he's done many times before. He walks through the Salon Carré, past masterpieces by Titian and Correggio, toward the spot where the Mona Lisa always hangs. The wall is empty. 4 iron pegs, a blank space, no painting. Barraud isn't immediately concerned. Paintings are often removed temporarily for photography or cleaning. He mentions it to a guard. The guard checks with maintenance. Maintenance checks with the photography department. Photography says they don't have it. An hour passes, then 2. People start moving faster. Voices get louder. Someone runs to get the head of security. By noon, the truth is unavoidable and unthinkable. The Mona Lisa is gone. The Louvre closes immediately, for the first time in its entire history, for reasons other than war or renovation. The French government closes the Italian border. Police interrogate every employee, every guard, every cleaner. They dust for fingerprints, still a relatively new forensic technique in 1911. They find a thumbprint on the empty frame, left carelessly in a stairwell by whoever took the painting. But they have no one to match it to. When the Louvre reopens a week later, thousands of people line up, not to see art, but to see the empty space where the Mona Lisa used to hang. They stand in silence. Some cry. Some leave flowers, as if attending a funeral. A painting had been stolen, but the reaction was as if a person had died. Now, the world's greatest art detectives, police investigators, and journalists all had their theories. International art smuggling rings, wealthy American collectors, German spies, elaborate ransom plot. They were all wrong. But here's what actually happened. The night before the theft, Sunday, August 20th, a man hid in a storage closet inside the Louvre. He knew the museum's schedule perfectly. He knew that on Mondays, the Louvre was closed to the public for cleaning and maintenance. He knew that meant fewer guards, fewer witnesses, fewer complications. His name was Vincenzo Peruggia. He was 30 years old, Italian, a handyman and glazier who had actually worked at the Louvre the previous year, installing protective glass cases over some of the paintings, including the Mona Lisa. Monday morning, Peruggia simply walked out of the closet wearing a white workman's smock, the same kind all the maintenance staff wore. He walked to the Salon Carré. The Mona Lisa was hanging there, alone, unguarded. He lifted it off the wall, removed the frame, rolled the painting, one of the most valuable objects in human civilization, and tucked it under his coat. Then he walked toward the exit. A door was locked. He couldn't get out. A plumber working nearby saw him struggling with the door, saw the white coat, assumed he was stuffed, and helped him remove the doorknob so Peruggia could leave. A plumber helped the thief escape. Peruggia walked out onto the streets of Paris with the Mona Lisa under his coat. No alarms, no chase, no drama. He took the painting home on the train. Vincenzo Peruggia was born in 1881 in Dumenza, a small town in northern Italy near the Swiss border. He was a working-class man, not particularly educated, not wealthy, not connected to the art world in any meaningful way. He had moved to Paris looking for work. He painted houses, installed windows, did odd jobs.
In 1910, he was hired by the Louvre as part of a crew installing protective glass over paintings. He spent weeks inside the museum, learning the layout, the routines, the security gaps, and at some point during that work, something shifted in his mind. He became obsessed with a single idea. The Mona Lisa was Italian. Leonardo da Vinci was Italian. The painting had been created in Italy, and yet it hung in France, stolen, he believed, by Napoleon. This wasn't actually true. Leonardo brought the painting to France himself in 1516 when he accepted an invitation from King Francis I. He sold it to the French crown willingly. Napoleon had nothing to do with it. He wasn't even born yet. But Peruggia didn't know that, or didn't care. He convinced himself he wasn't committing a crime. He was righting a historical wrong. He was a patriot, a hero. He was going to bring the Mona Lisa home, now. The investigation. The French police had almost nothing to work with. The thumbprint on the frame didn't match anyone in their criminal database. There were no witnesses who remembered seeing anything suspicious. The security systems at the Louvre in 1911 were shockingly minimal. No cameras, no alarms, barely any guards on Mondays.
So the investigation went wide, very wide. Police questioned over 800 people in the first month alone. Museum employees, art dealers, known forgers, foreign nationals living in Paris, anyone who had ever expressed interest in the Mona Lisa or Renaissance art or Leonardo da Vinci. And then things got weird. Pablo Picasso was arrested. Yes, that Pablo Picasso. In 1911, he was 29 years old and already controversial, a rising star of the Paris avant-garde, known for strange, fractured paintings that traditional critics hated. And he had recently purchased 2 stolen Iberian stone sculptures from a man named Jerry Pierret, who had stolen them from the Louvre. When the Mona Lisa disappeared, Pierret went to a newspaper and confessed that he had stolen other artworks from the Louvre. He gave an interview bragging about how easy it was. The police immediately suspected he might have taken the Mona Lisa too. And when they learned Picasso had bought stolen Louvre property from him, they brought Picasso in for questioning. Picasso panicked. He lied, he contradicted himself, he looked guilty of something, even if no one was quite sure what. His friend, the poet Guillaume Apollinaire, was also arrested. Apollinaire had once joked in print that the Louvre should be burned down. The police did not find that funny. He spent 6 days in jail. Both men were eventually cleared. Neither had anything to do with the theft. But for the rest of his life, Picasso remembered being interrogated about the Mona Lisa. He called it one of the most terrifying experiences of his youth. For 2 years, the Mona Lisa was gone. And during those 2 years, something extraordinary happened. The painting became famous in a way it had never been before. Before the theft, the Mona Lisa was well regarded. Absolutely. Art historians admired it. But it wasn't the single most famous painting in the world. That status belonged to works like the Sistine Chapel ceiling, or Raphael's School of Athens, or Botticelli's Birth of Venus. But the theft changed everything. Newspapers around the world ran front-page stories. Postcards of the empty walls sold by the thousands. Reproductions of the Mona Lisa appeared everywhere, on advertisements, on sheet music, on consumer products. Popular songs were written about the missing painting. The Mona Lisa became the Mona Lisa because it disappeared. Meanwhile, Vincenzo Peruggia was living in a tiny apartment in Paris with the most valuable painting on earth hidden in a trunk under his bed. For 2 years, under his bed. He didn't sell it, he didn't ransom it, he just kept it. Occasionally, he would take it out and look at it. He reportedly said he felt like the painting was looking back at him, approving of what he'd done. On November 29, 1913, 2 years and 3 months after the theft, Peruggia finally made his move. He traveled to Florence, Italy, carrying the Mona Lisa in a wooden trunk. He checked into a small hotel. Then he contacted an art dealer named Alfredo Geri, offering to sell him a very important painting. Geri was suspicious immediately, but he agreed to meet. Peruggia brought the trunk to Geri's gallery, opened it, and pulled out the Mona Lisa. Geri pretended to examine it carefully. He said he needed to authenticate it with an expert from the Uffizi Gallery. Could Peruggia lead it with him overnight? Peruggia agreed. He went back to his hotel. The next morning, the police were waiting. He stood trial in Florence in June 1914 and became a folk hero. Italian nationalists celebrated him. He had brought the Mona Lisa back to Italy. He had defied the French. The courtroom was packed with supporters. His defense attorney argued that Peruggia was a patriot, not a criminal, that he had acted out of love for Italy, not greed. The prosecution asked for 3 years in prison. The jury gave him 1 year and 15 days. He served 7 months before being released. For stealing the most famous painting in the world, 7 months. Before the Mona Lisa was returned to France, it went on tour in Italy. Florence, Rome, Milan, hundreds of thousands of Italians lined up to see it, many of them believing, as Peruggia had, that it was finally coming home. It wasn't, of course, it was just visiting. On December 30th, 1913, the Mona Lisa was handed over to French authorities at the Italian border. It traveled back to Paris by train under armed guard. On January 4th, 1914, it was rehung in the Louvre. Over 100,000 people came to see it in the first 2 days. Here's the twist that changes everything. In 1932, nearly 20 years after the theft, new evidence emerged suggesting that Peruggia may not have acted alone. An Argentine con man named Eduardo de Valfierno allegedly masterminded the theft. The theory goes like this. Valfierno hired Peruggia to steal the Mona Lisa, not to sell the original, but to create chaos and confusion in the art world, while Valfierno sold forged copies to wealthy collectors, each one believing they were buying the real stolen painting. According to this version, Valfierno sold 6 forged Mona Lisas before the original was recovered, each buyer convinced they owned Leonardo's masterpiece. The perfect crime. Except no one can prove it actually happened. The story came from a journalist who claimed Valfierno confessed to him, but Valfierno was dead by the time the story was published. There are no police records, no corroborating evidence, no proof the 6 buyers ever existed. It might be true, it might be complete fiction. We'll probably never know. Vincenzo Peruggia lived the rest of his life quietly.
He returned to Italy, married, had a daughter, and ran a paint shop. He never spoke publicly about the theft again. He died in 1925 at the age of 44 from a heart attack. His wife didn't learn about his role in the Mona Lisa theft until after his death, when journalists showed up asking questions. The man who committed the most famous art theft in history kept it secret from his own family. So what did the theft actually accomplish? It didn't return the Mona Lisa to Italy. It didn't strike a blow against French cultural imperialism. It didn't make Peruggia rich or famous in his lifetime. But it did something neither Peruggia nor anyone else could have predicted. It made the Mona Lisa immortal. Before 1911, most people had never heard of the painting. After 1911, everyone knew it. The theft generated more publicity, more fascination, more cultural obsession than any deliberate marketing campaign ever could have. When the painting returned to the Louvre, it wasn't just a Renaissance portrait anymore. It was a symbol, a mystery, a legend. The theft gave the Mona Lisa a story, and that story made it priceless in a way that has nothing to do with paint or wood or Leonardo's genius. Today, the Mona Lisa hangs in the Louvre behind bulletproof glass in a climate-controlled case watched by guards and cameras 24 hours a day. 6 million people visit it every year. Most of them spend less than 15 seconds looking at it, just long enough to take a photo and confirm they were there. What are they really looking at? A painting? Or the space where a painting used to be? Maybe they're looking at the same thing those mourners saw in 1911 when they visited the empty wall. The absence of something is sometimes more powerful than its presence. Vincenzo Peruggia thought he was stealing a painting to take it home. What he actually did was turn it into the most famous image in the history of art. He didn't steal the Mona Lisa, he made it legendary.